Yeah, we're doing pretty well here. We've got a good group. Thanks everybody for joining. Well, should I go ahead and start the introduction and then we'll do the presentation in a few minutes?
Yes, sure.
Well, good morning and good evening. Talking to you from Olympia, Washington. My name is Jeff, and we're going to talk about libraries, American libraries. And you know, that's a pretty big subject. There are a lot of libraries, as you can imagine, in the United States, but there are some pretty famous ones. You know, there's some really big ones that many of you have seen pictures of before. But what I want to do is talk about some of the largest ones and why they're so famous, and then also talk about specifically about sort of a typical American library. What would you find in a normal sized town? What services would they provide, and you know, what it looks like. So that's what we're going to do. I've put together a little presentation, and hopefully it'll be helpful. And please feel free to ask questions as I go. Say, hey Jeff, I've got a question. So don't be shy. So let me do this share screen. Here we go. There we are, and share. Okay. I think you can see that. Can you see that, Christy?
Yes, for sure.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Excellent. Thank you. There it is, American libraries. So I started off with this picture because this is really an interesting library. It's a library that's located in the city of Chicago, and it's at the University of Chicago. And it's a very big library. It's a huge place, but the very top of the building, they've built this really cool dome over the building, this glass dome. And this is where you can go and do computer work or do some reading. And when I saw it, I went, whoa, I've got to show this to everybody. It was a really great picture. So yeah, this is a University of Chicago. I think this is actually the students who are studying law at the University of Chicago. So this is where I want to read my next book. I want to sit right in this room and read. So we'll talk about libraries. As you can imagine, there are many libraries in the United States. I think the last count was something around 116,000 libraries. In the United States, they're all free. You don't have to pay to use any of the services at the library. And you know, the taxes that people pay all over the country pay for the services. And as we talked about on a previous meeting, you know, we have different types of taxes. We have city taxes, county taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes. And those all pay for different types of libraries. So as you would imagine, there are county libraries, city libraries, state libraries, and then there are also national libraries. And then in addition to that, there are also university libraries. And as you might imagine, university libraries are often huge. They're absolutely enormous. And we're going to talk about those today because some of the largest libraries in the United States are university libraries. Visitors are always welcome in libraries. There are very few libraries that you can't use as a visitor. And like you do in Kirovograd, or I should say Kropivnitzky, many free classes, many different kinds of classes. They offer language classes, of course, cultural events, and then just sort of training for various skills. Of course, you know, computer and internet access, as you would expect. And then a little bit different than what I experienced in Kropivnitzky was you can take books out of the library. You can check what we call checkout books, and you're allowed to take them home. And it's usually up to 12 books at any time that you can have at home. And normally you can keep them for up to 3 weeks. And this is pretty typical in most libraries across the United States. So you normally would get a library card, and they're now digital cards. They have a little chip on them. And it allows you to take books out of the library, but it also allows you to go to their website and use their ebooks. And it's just like checking out a book in a library, but you do it online. And of course, you download that book to your tablet or to your phone or to your computer. And this is very popular here in the States. Barbara and I use this feature, several times a week. We download ebooks to our readers and we read at home. So this is becoming much, much more popular here in the United States. And then one thing, when you visit the United States, and hopefully you all will someday, you'll notice that a lot of the libraries have many books in different languages. It's the United States, and we're a nation of immigrants. And so it's amazing, particularly some of the larger libraries, they have really big sections of books of languages, all kinds of languages. I think the last time I looked at the Seattle Public Library, they had language books in different languages, and they had 50 different languages that books were available in. Yeah, it was really amazing to me when I saw how many different sections. And of course, they had Russian books, but they also had a large Ukrainian section, which was pretty interesting. So next time you come and visit me here in Seattle, I'll be sure to take you by the library.
Great. We will.
No problem. So some of you may have looked at lists, and there's a lot of libraries as we talked about. The largest library, oh, by the way, these numbers refer to the number of books that they have. Sometimes they're called volumes like the volume on a speaker. That same word is used to describe a book. But in this case, the Library of Congress is the largest library in the United States. And this is the sort of the National Library. It's located in Washington, D.C. It's actually not far from the White House. And I have visited this library a few times. What's interesting about this library is it's not the place to go to get a book to read for the weekend. It's a place to do research. As you might imagine, every country has lots of historical documents that they want to keep safely and keep on file. And the Library of Congress in the United States is that place. So you can find all kinds of fascinating documents about the history of the United States. And many of them are the original documents. They're preserved, of course. You can't just walk up to a shelf and take it off the shelf. But in many cases, you can see these documents, and you can also search their amazing library if you're looking for a particular document about a particular time in our history. And so, I'm going to show you some pictures of it here in a minute. But it's a great resource. Then as you go down through this list, you can see it's a combination of university libraries, like Harvard University, as you might expect, is a really big library. And then also in the city of Boston, the Boston Public Library is almost the same size in terms of the number of books. But you'll see here, some of these are public libraries and some of these are university libraries. And the list just goes and goes and goes. Here's the second page. I could show you page after page after page, which I'm not going to do, but you can see these are big places. They have millions and millions and billions of books. Yeah. So I thought I'd show you my library, the library that Barbara and I go to. And as I mentioned earlier, we live in Olympia, Washington, which, if you haven't looked at a map, it's up near Canada, on the western coast of the United States. It's near the city of Seattle. And as you might imagine, Seattle is a big city, so it has a big library. But our little area here, Olympia, actually has 8 different libraries that serve different parts of the community. So there's always a library not too far from where you live, which is great. So here's the one that we go to. It's in a neighborhood called Tumwater. And this is what it looks like inside. And of course, lots of computers and technology as you would expect. But this is a nice library. They have more than 100,000 ebooks that you can download, which is not a bad selection for a smaller town library. And they offer, just like you do in Kropivnitsky at the libraries there, lots of different programs, lots of classes, lots of ways to learn. And of course, all of the services are free. One of the features of the libraries in America now, almost all of them have this service where if you're going to take a book out of the library, if you want to check it out, as they say, to check out a book, they are now doing it electronically. So you take the book to the scanner, just like at the grocery store, if you go to the supermarket. And of course, every book has a little barcode on it. So you put your library card in the machine, it reads who you are, you scan the books, and they're checked out in your name for usually for 3 weeks. And then you bring the books back when you're done. That's kind of a nice feature. And then one other thing that our library does, and many other libraries around the country do, is, as I mentioned, there are 8 locations just in our larger town. And so they have these vans that move books around depending upon your request. So for example, Stas, let's say you were doing a research paper and you went into a library and you said, oh, you see on the catalog, the electronic library catalog, you say, oh, here's this really cool book. Oh, but it's at another location. They will transport that book to you the next day at the location that you're closest to. And they use these vans to do it. Each library has their own van. And so every day they load up the requests for books and they drive to the other 7 libraries and they drop books off at each place.
So it's only for the local, it's only for local libraries, or for example, if I'm in Washington and I found a book in New York, so they can bring the book from New York also, or it's just for local ones? Yeah,
that's a great question, Stas. It's mostly just local. However, there are networks of libraries that cooperate with each other, and they send them by overnight. They post them. But that's usually for universities, and some state libraries have, particularly ones that are very remote. If you're living in Wyoming, you're probably not near a library. And so they offer services where books can be transported closer to where you live. In our case, this particular group, what's called the Timberland Regional Library. They call this Timberland because we have lots of trees. So this area is, this one just cooperates between those 8 libraries. But as I said before, there are other ones that operate on a much larger scale. And it is great if you're looking for a particular book, and they'll transport, and it's almost always free. You don't have to pay for it, which is great. And also during COVID, the entire King County, which is the larger area that I live in, they have been setting up these library to go vans. And it's very interesting. You go online and you type in the book that you're looking for and you check it out. And then these vans go around to the different communities and they stop and they wait for a particular period of time at each location. And then you go and meet them, and the books that you asked for are in a bag with your name on it. You see it over here. And then you can, because the library has been closed in many cases for many months. And so, so this way, everyone can get their books, and it's really great. So they're still doing this today in our area. So for libraries that are still closed, that are you don't have access to because of COVID, they're doing this library to go, which are vans that circulate and stop in different parts of the community.
Yeah.
And of course, Americans are very lazy. They like to drive their cars. They don't like to get out of their cars. And so almost every library has a what they call a book drop or a library return, like library book return. So you drive through, sort of like you're stopping at the fast food restaurant, but you throw your books in these, and then they pick them up every day and return them and check them off of your account.
Yeah.
It's nice when it's really raining and you don't want to go inside. So now we're going to turn our attention to some of these big libraries. And we'll start with the biggest one, the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And as you can see, this is a big place. And what's amazing about this library, I've been in it a few times, is you can actually just walk in. You know, it's just a huge library, and they have a beautiful center reading room, which is just amazing. This place, every time I go into it, it gives me the chills. It's an amazing place. And if you have a request for a particular document, you go to these terminals and you do research to find the document, the historical document you're looking for. And then you can request it that way, or you can ask one of these people at this desk, this circular desk in the center, and they'll help you. They're experts, of course, on what is located in the library, and they can help direct you to the right location for what you're looking for. This is another library that's one of my favorites. It's an old library in the city of Baltimore, which is not too far from Washington, D.C. It's located in the state of Maryland. And it's just a gorgeous library. I love this place. I've been here a few times. And every time I walk in, I feel a little smarter. You know, I feel like somehow all this knowledge that is around me is somehow making me a little bit smarter. It's just a beautiful place with this glass, amazing glass ceiling, and this beautiful ironwork on the sides. It's just a special library. And of course, libraries at universities are huge, and the largest one is located in Boston at Harvard University. And I've actually, I took classes at Harvard many, many, many years ago, and went into this library, and it is a huge place. It's actually 4 or 5 different buildings. It actually isn't all in one building. It's so large. But the main building, you know, is the one that everyone sees pictures of. And yeah, it's a special place located right on the campus of Harvard University. And lots of happy students doing their research.
It's our dream to have such many students.
Yeah. This is a big place. And this is just what they have many halls or rooms like this in that library. This is just one of them. There are many of these that are located throughout the main floor of the library. What amazed me when I visited this library when I was taking classes was it's open. Most of these university libraries are open 24 hours a day because students, you know, they're working on various things and they have different schedules. So I went into this library once late at night. I think it was after 10 o'clock at night, and it was full of students, absolutely full of students. So, you know, it's almost a place to go and meet your friends and study, and many of them have cafes. Almost all of these libraries have cafes in them. So they're places that you go and you just spend time doing your research or working on papers or whatever. This is also located in Boston, obviously, their public library. It's a gorgeous building, absolutely gorgeous, located right in the center of the old city of Boston. And I mean, what a room. This room is really special.
Like in the church.
Yes, yes, you're right. And a lot of these libraries, the older ones, have that feeling. They almost feel like a church for books. Yeah. And then a little further south from the city or from the state of Massachusetts is the state of Connecticut. And in the state of Connecticut, in the city of New Haven, you'll see Yale University, which is one of the greatest universities in America. And you'll see that Yale University is also very old. It's like Harvard in that way. And they have a very different style. They have a very old building on the outside, and then inside they have completely modernized it. They were worried about fire, in a very old building that's made of wood inside. They were worried that a fire could start and destroy, millions and millions of historical documents. And so many years ago, they decided to completely renovate the inside of the library. So they left the outside old, looking like it did when it was built. But inside that building, it's completely new and modern. They built this special structure in the center for their most important books, and it's protected from fire. They've made a lot of sort of technology improvements inside this to be sure that these historical books are safe. Kind of interesting. You don't expect that from the outside. You go, oh, another old building, and you walk in and it looks like this.
Amazing.
Yeah. Here's one that I've actually visited. This is, again, a law library. So if you're studying to be a lawyer or an advocate, right? Is it advocate? Be an advocate? Yeah, advocate. Yeah, thank you. So University of Michigan Library, again, it feels like you're in a church. It's just got these amazing, what they call reading rooms, the rooms where you actually sit down and read or do research. And it's just, it has a special feeling to it. And no list is complete without talking about the New York City Public Library. Many of these locations, these libraries it's not the only library in the city. And as you can imagine, the New York City Public Library system has more than 100 libraries. There are 100 different locations. But the big one, the one that everyone knows about in the center of Manhattan, around all of these skyscrapers, is the New York City Public Library. And I showed this picture to tell you a little story. So many years ago, when I was working before I retired, I worked in New York City. I worked there for about 8 years. And I walked right down this street every day to work. Every day. And the building I work in is just out of sight. It's right here. And it's a place that I think many of you might know. It's on an area called Times Square, where they have the New Year's celebration, with the ball dropping and people crazy, everyone running around. That's Times Square, and that's the building I worked in was right on Times Square. So every morning I took the train into New York City, and I came into the big train station, and I walked right down this road every day. So I got to know this library pretty well. I used to go into it often and either just read or take a book out and take it home and read it over the weekend. So I spent a lot of time in this library many years ago. And again, it has a great reading room. This is the inside of that library. And yeah, it's just really special. So here's one that's closer to home. And yeah, in Seattle, Seattle actually has 23 libraries scattered around the city. But in the center is their central library. And it's right in the middle of the city. And it's a really unusual design, really special. And the outside is obviously very different, very unusual. But the inside is really special. Can you imagine reading in a library like this? There are nine different floors to this library, 9 levels. And each level has a completely different feel. This is the main level, the street level where you walk in off the street. And there's a cafe here, as you can see. Of course, there are some books scattered here and there, places to sit. But it has this amazing light. There's light coming in all around. It's also a very interesting design. It's been designed to not require heating or cooling. The heat from the sun coming in warms the building up. And then they also have a way to store that heat and use it at night. And then during the day, they also have ways to sort of change the reflecting on this, and it stays cool, so it doesn't get hot during the day. It's a very, very interesting design. But lots of different floors. They have an entire floor full of computers. It has to have at least 300 computers on this floor. And you know, they're all free to use, of course. But each floor has a big theater. One of the floors in the Seattle one has this enormous theater where they put on presentations. Famous speakers might come and give a presentation there. Yeah, it's really a cool place. And in the same city, in Seattle, the University of Washington, which is a pretty large university, it has more than 40,000 students at this one university. Their library is also pretty special. It's got a great outside. Again, it looks a little bit like a church. And inside it looks like a church. And again, one of these very long, big reading halls, which is really special.
Like Hogwarts.
Yeah. And our son attended the University of Washington, and so Barbara and I often used to go to the university and go to the library and see what it was like. But yeah, it's a special place. And that is it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, it's really, it's different, isn't it? Yeah.
It's very different from our libraries.
Yeah.
The size and the amount of books that your libraries have. Because our library, to compare, our library have funded books of 117,000.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good number.
Yeah,
that's a good number.
That's not good. That's good for Ukraine, you know.
Absolutely.
But if to compare with United States, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I think the difference, I think, Christy, you said it perfectly. I think the difference is we have this tax system. You know, yeah, everyone pays their taxes. And of course, a part of that tax money goes into building these libraries and putting lots of books in them. Yeah.
Do you need to pay for the year of using the library? No?
No.
Just taxes for the library. That's it.
Yeah.
And how much?
Yeah.
How much it kind of costs?
Oh, you mean what are our taxes?
Yeah, the taxes.
Yeah, it depends. That's a great question. And again, there's 4 different taxes. So, and they collect them in different ways. For example, in a city, sometimes you pay a direct tax, maybe 2% or 3% of your salary. But in many cases, they have a sales tax. In other words, when you buy something, let's say it costs $1, they would have, the city would put an extra 2 cents on top of that. So you would buy that product for $1.02. And then the store collects that 2 cents, and then they have to send that to the city. Same thing happens for a county. Counties have the same thing, but counties also have what's called a property tax. So if you own a house or an apartment or whatever, wherever you live, if you own property, you pay each year you pay a tax for that property. And it's based upon the value of the property. So if you live in a small house on a small piece of land, you pay much less. You live on a huge house on a big piece of land.
Yeah, you have money, so you can pay.
Precisely. Yeah, that's it. So they have property tax. So for example, Barbara and I each year, we pay about $6,000 in property tax to the county where we live. Some of that money goes to the state of Washington, and some of it stays in the county. And it goes to fire services, police services, road repair, libraries, all of these different,
all the list of everything you use.
All the list of all those things. And so that's how the tax system works. And then of course the state has a tax system, and in our state, each state is different. In our state, it's sales tax. So they have about an 8 cents, 8 pennies on each dollar. If you buy something, you pay an extra 8 pennies, and those pennies go back to the state. And so with all those people spending that money, it's a lot of money. So the state of Washington gets that money, and then they provide services, the same services, but on a state level. So so roads and libraries, all those things, but they're paid for on the state level. And then the last question is the federal tax, and that is usually based on your salary, how much money you make. And it's a complicated calculation, because some things you don't pay tax on, some things you do. So you normally would go to a specialist, an accountant, to help you calculate this. And I just finished it for this year. We do that in the first part of each year. So normally it's between 20% of your salary and 30% of your salary, somewhere in that range. So it's a lot of money. If you make $100,000, you're going to pay $20,000 to the U.S. government. But as you've seen from these presentations, you can see where the tax money goes. It's all going.
The service and everything you have inside of for example, libraries, it's amazing.
It's a lot of different services.
Another question. Is it free for everyone? For example, I came to New York and I want to go inside the New York Public Library.
Yes.
What should I do? To have just my ID and that's it, or how can I get inside?
That's a great question. Most smaller towns and smaller cities, absolutely, no problem. You show an ID. You have to have an address of some kind. So if you're staying at a hotel, or if you're staying with a friend, you give them the address, and then that's it. And they'll give you your library card, and you can use that for all the different services. And that's pretty much the same all over the United States. When I had my visitors from Kropotnitsky stay here with me, we did that each time. They went to the library, they got their library card, and that was all they needed. And they were able to use it the time that they were here.
Окей.
Yeah.
Можливо, хтось ще має запитання? Учасники, давайте будьте активні. Давайте, включаємось. Так, у нас тут 25 осіб. Не соромтесь, або українською можете запитати. Перекладемо. Можливо, є бібліотекарі.
Jeff, you said that in your town in Olympia you have 8 libraries. So, like, what is the population of the town, and how many people, how many visitors can come to the library at once? So, what is the coverage?
Yeah. So these libraries are scattered in sort of the area around Olympia and in the city of Olympia. The city of Olympia itself is not that large. The city is probably maybe 80,000 people. And then there are other sort of communities or towns around Olympia that are part of the same library system. So there's a town called Lacey, that's another maybe 70 or 80,000 people. Then there's the area Tumwater that we live in, that's about 60,000. So I think if you added all of these communities up to one number, it's probably 200,000 people.
Yeah, like Kropotkin size.
Similar in size if you added it all up. And so each library is pretty large. I mean, they're pretty big buildings. So yeah, you would never have a problem getting into it.
You mean 200 people a day, like visitors for a day?
Oh no, I meant 200,000 people in the total.
On the territory, like inhabitants.
Yeah, 200,000 inhabitants. But there's never a problem getting into the library. Yeah, there's plenty of room. Yeah, that's never been a problem.
So like 200,000 people for 8 big libraries, and then how many libraries do we have here in Kropotkin? Like 2 or 3?
No, not 2 or 3. We have more than 2 or 3. But the biggest libraries that we have is Czechova Public Library at the middle of our town. Our, like, the heart of our town, right? It's our library for youth called Vivian Malanyuk Library.
And also Shevchenko's library.
What?
Shevchenko's library.
Yes, and this library for children. So it's just 3 big libraries. And then we have some little libraries inside the town and like around the region, our region.
Yeah.
But still we need some visitors, and we work on getting visitors inside. This is the biggest problem for Ukraine, you know. And how do you think, what should we do to make and to get more visitors?
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Your opinion. What can we do to prevent people?
Wow. Is it the problem during COVID, or is it the problem in general?
In general, that's the problem. Very little amount of people come in to get books. Get books, more people, but to sit and work in the reading room, and we have 3 reading rooms here in our library. We have like 2, 3, 5 people a day reading the book, you know. But we want more.
Yeah, of course. Wow, that's difficult. That's a tough one, isn't it? Yeah.
We work on
I like it. Yeah.
Now, are there any events in libraries?
Yes. Almost every day there's some sort of special event. And well, just like what you do at your library, Christy, I see on the Facebook page for the library, there seem to be special events happening often at your library. And that happens here. Of course, many of our libraries have been closed for this time during COVID, but now they're opening up and they're starting to get back into normal operation. So you could go to a library and attend a presentation on a subject. You could go and listen to a speaker, but also go for lots of free classes. You know, I know some libraries offer free English classes for immigrants. Others offer language classes of different languages if you're going to travel. So yes, many different programs on many different subjects.
And what else do you have? Kind of like book exhibitions or like flash mobs? What's interesting? What did you see by yourself?
Yeah, I think that has changed because of COVID. We're not seeing as many visitors now. You know, most people are doing the ebooks. You know, ebooks have become extremely popular for obvious reasons. And so it will be interesting to see how the libraries come back to normal and what services they offer as a result. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one yet. I'll have to wait and see.
Okay,
Can I ask?
Any other questions from anyone?
Yes. There is a reader subscription in these libraries, or person can come at any time.
Yeah, you can come at any time. Yeah, it's not a problem.
Що ти що не м'явкаєш?
Yeah. Whoop, someone's there we go. Thank you. Yeah, Alexei, you can come at any time. Most of the libraries are open, 9 o'clock in the morning until maybe 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And so it's not a problem. And most of them are open 7 days a week. Sometimes they're closed one day on the weekend, but most of the time they're open because, of course, that's when students are free. That's when students have the time to do their research for their documents and for their reports. So you'll find most libraries are open at hours that are convenient.
Anytime at night we can come to the library.
Yeah. And like I said, if you're at a university, that's when the library is the busiest. If you attend a university in America during the day, you're in class. You're not going to the library. So the real activity at the library starts after classes in the evening. And as I told you, when I visited that library at Harvard once, I couldn't believe how many students there were at 10 o'clock at night in the library. It was unbelievable.
They live there, yeah. They live inside the library.
Yeah.
They have all the services they need, computers and
everything's there.
Everything, yeah.
Everything is there. So yeah, a lot of people, I imagine if I was taking classes at Harvard University, I would be at the library every day.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Can I ask?
Sure.
How much is the fine for late return of the book?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Each library has a different plan. Many libraries have stopped that. There is no fine because they found that it was just becoming annoying. Most of the time it was a few days late and it was just too much trouble to collect the money and it wasn't worth it. So many libraries have just stopped it. If you still owe a book and it's been for many days, many times they will just turn off your card, to stop you from being able to take more books. And they'll send you, little emails or messages saying, please bring the book back. That seems to work in most cases. So, for example, the library that I showed you here in Olympia, they no longer have these fines for a late book.
And you also managed about downloading electronic books. So do they give you like some sort of a trial period or something that you can just read the book for a certain period of time, or you can download it forever?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's very interesting the way electronic books work. You download the book and you can keep it for an hour or keep it for 3 weeks. It's up to you. But at the end of that 3 weeks, the book will expire. It will go away. Yeah. So you can't keep it forever. Okay. And they will have so many licenses for each book. So if it's a popular book, by a popular author. Many libraries will buy 5 versions of it, 5 licenses, maybe 10, maybe even 20. And then they will keep those licenses until the book is no longer popular. And then they will sell those licenses back to the company that manages them. So the electronic books are always available, but in many cases you still have to wait to download it because the licenses are being used by other readers at that time. But in most cases, our library does a very good job, but you don't have to wait very long. You can sign up online to for the list for people waiting for that book. It's called a hold, like to hold something.
Mhm.
So you sign up and you can see where you are on the list. So if it's a very popular book and everyone wants to read it, you might be number 15 on a list that has 10 books. And each day you can see where you are as people finish the book and electronically return it to the library. You get closer to being able to check that book out yourself. It's great. And they have a lot of audiobooks, which I really like if I'm driving. So for my trip tomorrow, I'm going to drive, many hours tomorrow on the highway. So I download a few of these audiobooks and listen to those as I'm driving, which is great.
Can I ask?
Sure.
You say that in libraries are sections where historical materials or old books are stored for many years. And I want to say about books from the past. And under what conditions I can get there and read these old books?
Yeah. Excellent question, Alexei. Normally, the library has a specialist, a person like Christy, a specialist who will be able to help you find the right document. And in some cases, you can take that book home. But if it's a really old book, something that has great historical value, then you normally need to read that book inside the library.
Yeah.
But they will help you find it. They're the experts on, where is this book? And they'll also help you find out a book that maybe you don't know about. They can say, oh, you really should look at this book that we know about that will help you with your research. So those staff members, those people who work at the library are really valuable, just like Christy.
Yeah, it's like the treasure for the library.
Yes.
For example,
Yes.
in the Czechoslovakia library, so they have such old, very ancient books, and you just need to read inside. You cannot get for any money,
Right.
You cannot get them home. So just inside in the reading hall.
Yeah. But yeah, those library staff, those people that have worked at these libraries for many years, and in some cases their entire life, they are so valuable because they know so much about how to find certain documents or what's the right book if you're doing a particular research, particularly on history. So it's a great resource. And libraries, that's really what they are. They're resources in many cases to our history, to our past.
Yeah.
And they have such value, a value that you can't put a price tag on. It's hard to put a number, what's it worth? Who knows what it's worth? It's so valuable. Yeah. Good question, Alexei. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your activity, guys, today. And
Yes.
the great presentation of Jeff, as usual. And can you explain the next week for everybody, because we had 25 participants, and now explain when we can start speaking with you next time.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for reminding me. So I'm taking off on my adventure to the southwest of the United States. I'm going to leave tomorrow. So I will be away for almost 2 weeks. So let's do the calculation on a calendar, Christy. I've got my calendar here.
Let's see.
So I will be, oh, you know what? I will be back.
23rd, yeah?
Yeah, let's see. So it's March.
April.
So actually I will be back for
And 16?
yeah, 16. Yeah, 16. The 16th.
16.
March 16th. I'm sorry, April 16th. April 16th.
April.
Thank you, Alexi, for reminding me. April 16th.
Okay, and then we will figure out the next topic, or you will tell us about your trip, maybe?
I think maybe some combination of the trip, yeah, something there, because I think there'll be some good pictures. At least I hope so.
You will have. Okay, then thank you for today. And
Thanks, everybody.
see you, everybody, April 16, our next meeting.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.